Welcome everyone to the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund briefing event. My name is Jenny MacDonald from the KTN, and I'm hosting today's event on behalf of BEIS and Innovate UK, ably assisted by my colleagues Louise Jones and Natasha Sim. Now, before we get on to the main content of today's event, let's cover a little bit of housekeeping, just so that we get the most out of today's event. You will see that you are on mute. You're on YouTube and we're delivering this event through Zoom. So in order for you to ask questions during today's event, which you're quite welcome to do, please could you type those into the chat box on YouTube and state whether your question relates to the studies competition or the deployment competition, because that will help us to give you the right information. My colleague Louise Jones is on YouTube with you, and she will copy those questions across to BEIS and Innovate UK, and we will answer those questions, as many as we can, during the Q&A session. Now, there's no substitute for a live event, in my opinion, for networking. But after a year of COVID, I can't believe it's been a year already, we're all getting quite used to networking virtually. So please take this opportunity to introduce yourselves on YouTube, pop your name, organisation, and a few sentences on how you're interested in this fund, what it is about the fund that you're interested in. We have over 650 people registered for today's event, so there should be plenty of people on YouTube for you to connect with and maybe find a partner to work with on the competitions. Today's event is being recorded, so you will be sent a link to the recording after today's event, and you'll also get a link to all the presentation slides and a lot more information about the competition guidance and support that's provided by the KTN. After the main part of today's event, we will be offering the opportunity for you to have a one-to-one discussion with BEIS, Innovate UK, or myself confidentially about your project ideas. So if you would like to, once you've heard the scope, like to book a meeting with any of us, you need to do that through our networking platform. Now, you were sent a link when you registered and a reminder went out on Monday, but if you haven't had a chance yet to register for the platform and you would like to book a one-to-one, then you can do so at the link on the screen there. We will put it on the screen again during the break so that you don't have to scribble it down now. You'll be able to register during the break and book a one-to-one meeting. Once you go into the networking platform, you'll see tabs across the top of the screen. So if you click on search, you will then see another screen come up, and on the left-hand side, it says Innovate UK, BEIS and KTN. By clicking on that, you will just get our little subgroup so that you can connect with us and book a meeting quite simply. So that's the housekeeping. Now looking at today's agenda. So following the welcome that I'm doing now, we will have a presentation from Catherine Barber from the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Catherine is the Deputy Director for Industrial Energy Transformation and in charge of this programme. So she'll be setting the scene, talking a little bit about the industrial net zero policy that is driving some of the funding that's helping you. We will then move on to the main competition presentations. Firstly, Julia Schumacher from Innovate UK. Julia is the innovation lead in charge of the competitions for this round of the IETF. So she will talk a bit about the scope of both competitions and a general overview of them, just to hopefully give you enough detail based on the guidance that hopefully you've already read. That will be followed by her colleague Rachel Evans from Innovate UK's competition team, and she'll talk a bit more about the eligibility rules and how to actually apply to the competitions. Then at 11 o'clock, that's when we'll start to go through your questions. Please don't leave it until 11 o'clock to type your question into YouTube, because that will make it very hard work for Louise to copy it all across fast enough. So as soon as you think of a question, as you're watching the presentations, type it into YouTube and we will answer your questions at 11. Following the Q&A, we'll have a short comfort break. And as I say, if you haven't registered for the networking platform, that's the time to do it. And then the rest of the presentations are, well, the next couple are to give you some ideas of the types of technology that are in scope for the IETF. So first of all, we have Dave Betts from Energy Drive Systems, who'll be talking about their variable speed drive and how that can help to make energy savings from motors. And the second case study is Darren Bryant from Heatcatcher, who'll be talking about some options for recovering heat and reusing heat at your site. Then the audience gets their opportunity to do a 2-minute pitch on what they have to offer to potential partners in the audience. And then lastly, I will cover the application support service and how the KTN can help you with your preparing your applications and answering any questions that you might have. This new for this round of funding, we're also setting up a virtual technology marketplace, which will allow technology providers to provide a 5-minute video on what their technology is and how it can help manufacturers. And we're hoping that that platform will help manufacturers and data centers to become aware of all the different types of technology that is out there that they could use when applying to the IETF. So I'll go into a lot more detail at 12:30 about how you get involved in that marketplace. Okay, so first of all, our first presentation is from Catherine Barber from the Department from Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and I'll hand over to Catherine now.
Thank you very much, Jenny. It's lovely to be with you all today and amazing to have such a great turnout for this event. I hear it's an UK KTN record. We're really humbled that the IETF is getting such attention and hopefully so many applications for its new window. So as Jenny said, I'm responsible for this fund. I'm also joined today by several members of the BEIS team, including Lily Tozer, our Head of Market Intelligence, through whom you can book one-to-one meetings with us later today after lunch if you'd like to talk about your specific projects. So let me tell you a bit about why this fund exists. Net zero is, of course, the law. In 2019, the government published the Climate Change Act, which commits the UK, the first major economy, to have a legally binding target to get to net zero by mid-century. And industry is a big part of UK emissions. It's a big part of the UK economy. About 1/6 of all emissions come from industry. And so that means if the economy as a whole is going to get to zero, then industry does as well, or very nearly, maybe 90%. So that graph on the right just shows the trajectory from now, 2020 to 2050. At the start, we expect a lot of resource efficiency and energy efficiency, and then some newer technologies coming on stream, but a really rapid fall in emissions in industry. And that's what we're here to support. So the government has also, since that act, published a number of other documents, including the 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution and the energy white paper that came out in December. And both of those reinforce the story about getting to net zero and doing it in a way that keeps industry competitive in the UK and that also supports green jobs. So what is the government doing to help you in this quest? So first of all, there is quite a lot of funding support. The Energy Innovation Programme from BEIS has offered about £500 million of support to get new technologies going. And the IETF is really picking up where that innovation programme leaves off. A lot of technologies are now ready to use, and we're here to help you apply them in your business. Clusters are very important to us. Over half of UK emissions are in 6 clusters around the UK, as pictured on the diagram here. We have a mission to get at least 4 of those to low carbon within a decade, and at least 1 to be fully net zero within 2 decades. And again, there's money behind that, as always. Carbon pricing is a big part of our policy framework. It's existed now for over a decade in the UK, and we've just launched the UK emissions trading scheme, which replaces the EU version. So carbon pricing continues to provide you with that financial incentive to get to zero. And then we do all of this in dialogue with you, with trade associations, with businesses, with other stakeholders. And there's just a mention there of the CCUS business models work that we've been consulting on recently. And very soon, possibly in the next week, 2, 3, the industrial decarbonisation strategy should be coming out. So please do look out for that. So what's it going to take to get to net zero? First of all, there's technologies. We know that there are some key technologies that will be needed, which have to start being deployed really now in the 2020s. And carbon capture, use and storage and hydrogen are two of the key technologies that BEIS supports. Meanwhile, there's becoming more efficient, reducing our fossil fuel consumption, both through energy efficiency and resource efficiency. And then we have to do this together. It's not something that we in government can do by ourselves. It's not something that you in industry can do by yourselves. We have to do that in partnership. So a bit about the IETF itself. We've got two objectives. The first is that we should bring down energy costs, the energy bills for you and the emissions. And we also want to bring down the risks of some of the newer technologies, what we call deep decarbonisation technologies, by helping you demonstrate them. We're targeted very much at industrial processes. We can help manufacturing companies and data centres to reduce energy use and emissions. And we're open in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Our colleagues in the Scottish Government have got a Scottish IETF to which you can apply if you've got a base there as well. So who's who? BEIS is responsible for the design of the fund, and we're happy to take any questions on why we've set it up how we have. Innovate UK is running the spring 2021 window and will manage the application process itself. And KTN are fantastically helping us to publicise the spring window this year. And Jenny, thank you and colleagues so much for doing this great job and to have got us so many people online today. The IETF is competitive. That means that when you put your application in, we will look at the carbon savings, look at the energy savings, compare that with all the other projects, and the funding will go to the ones that do the most. And as I mentioned, the Scottish IETF also exists and is very similar. So let me tell you a bit about the phases. For England, Wales and Northern Ireland, we've got £289 million to allocate. We've already run one phase last year. We were really pleased with how that went. Perhaps some of you in the audience are beneficiaries from that. We have offered 39 awards totaling just over £30 million. And that was really focusing on energy efficiency projects and also studies for future projects that you might undertake, which could either be about efficiency or the deep decarbonisation technologies. And that's what we're doing again this time round, phase 1, spring 2021. Again, it's focused on energy efficiency kit and studies for either sort, but it's up to £40 million. And that's because we think that demand is rising and hopefully people are building confidence in the fund. We also know that last year was quite a tough year because of COVID, and we hope that this year some of you will be more able to put in bids if you didn't have the chance in 2020. And then later this year, we'll open what's called phase 2. That's the remainder of the fund. And that will fund all the same things that we've been doing up to now, but will extend into deep decarbonisation technology. So if you've got those great ideas for the sort of more futuristic, maybe hydrogen, CCUS, electrification, etc., you can apply then. But from now, it's 8th of March to 14th of July. So just a little bit about the phase 1 winners. Sadly, I can't share names of companies yet and tell you about the projects. We're still going through the contracting phase. But I can say, as I just mentioned, that we've approved over £30 million of funding, and that came from all geographical regions of the UK, lots of different sectors and technologies. So those include food and drink, steel, paper, pharmaceuticals, several others as well, and spread all over England, Wales and Northern Ireland, which we were really delighted about, and our ministers were quite happy about as well. Jenny will talk more about who can apply and for what, but perhaps just to tell you the principles on which we allocate funding. We are open to all manufacturing sectors and data centres, and we think that you know best what the right technology is, so we are technology neutral. But 3 things to mention. First of all, obviously projects have got to be in line with our objectives, so they should reduce your energy consumption and or your carbon emissions from your existing industrial processes. That's absolutely core to the application. We don't want to fund anything that is going to be a stranded asset later in the century. So if you're applying for something that may have a lifetime of 40 or 50 years and therefore still be in operation when net zero should have happened, if it's not going to be compatible with net zero, that would be a problem for the application. A lot of technology, of course, a lot of kit that you could be installing may just have a lifespan of 10 or 20 years, so that won't be so much of an issue. But we do want to see that the emissions reductions that it will provide are in line with that steady and quite rapid decline of emissions that the UK needs to make. And finally, we're a transformation fund. So on behalf of you, the taxpayer, we're not going to support projects if there's already government support for it, or if the technology is already well established and affordable. We will look to you to be doing that. So preparing your application, the guidance is already available online. You might have taken a look. Please do read it before starting your application. And there are lots of people who can help you. You can contact Innovate UK on the details there, and I'm sure we'll make that available after the session as well, either email or by phone. And if you've got questions on policy, you can direct those to BEIS. And that's it from me. Thank you so much for coming today, and I will hand on to Jenny now.
Thank you, Catherine. That was great. Okay, so now we're going to hear about those competitions, and I'll pass over to Julia Schumacher from Innovate UK.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Catherine. Yes, my name is Julia Schumacher, and I'm the Innovation Lead for IETF here at Innovate UK. So I'm just going to take the next 15 minutes or so just to go through an overview of the competition and look at some of the scope requirements, really to help you determine if any of the projects that you have in mind are in scope or eligible for this fund. Just moving my slides on. Okay, so yes, IETF Spring 2021. So it's, as Catherine has said, it's a £40 million fund, and that's to support high energy users transition to a low carbon future. So as with phase 1, the aim of the fund is to help companies improve their energy efficiencies, reduce their energy bills, and reduce their carbon emissions. So there are 2 strands to IETF. There's a deployment strand and a studies strand, and I'm going to run through both with you. So starting with the deployment strand. So the deployment strand enables companies to deploy mature energy efficient technologies that improve the energy efficiency and reduce energy demand of an industrial process. So the minimum grant that you can apply for is £100,000. The maximum grant funding is £14 million. And in terms of timescales, projects must be completed by March 2024. It is worth noting here in terms of the eligible costs under this strand and how they are defined, as in it's the extra investment costs necessary to achieve the higher level of energy efficiency. In some cases, the total investment costs can be supported, and we would just encourage you, if you are considering applying into this strand, that you just reach out to Innovate UK or KTN, and we can just go through the eligible costs with you, but they'll be covered in more detail as well shortly. So moving on now to the second strand. So this is for study projects, and these can either be feasibility or engineering studies. So both feasibility and engineering studies enable companies to determine the benefits of deploying a mature energy efficient technology or deep decarbonisation. So for feasibility studies, the minimum eligible project cost is £30,000 with a maximum grant funding of £7 million. And for engineering studies, The minimum eligible project cost is £50,000 with a maximum grant funding of £14 million. In terms of the percentage grant that you're able to apply for, this will be dependent on your company size, and Rachel's going to cover that in her presentation when we talk about eligibility. So I just thought it would be helpful to just differentiate between the feasibility studies and the engineering studies. So you can see here a list of what feasibility studies must include. And the aim of a feasibility study is to investigate a chosen technological solution and the technical, economic and operational impacts that this technology would have if it was to be deployed. So it's important to note that feasibility studies shouldn't be carried out as part of an options analysis, and it should be based on a single technology that should have already been identified prior to the study being carried out. For deep decarbonisation feasibility studies, you should demonstrate that the technology is sufficiently well developed and feasible to be used in the process. So moving on to the engineering studies, again, there's a list here of what these must investigate. But the aim of an engineering study is that it's a detailed project plan that identifies specific technical and operational requirements, really equivalent to a front-end engineering and design or FEED study. And the output of an engineering study is expected to be a full project plan incorporating all of the information required to fully understand the project. Okay, so just touching on the eligible sectors for this competition. So this competition is aimed at businesses that use energy or produce direct emissions as a result of their industrial processes. And the industrial processes that we are looking to support through IETF are manufacturing under SIC codes 10 through to 33200 and data centres SIC code 63110. And as highlighted here, IETF is not an innovation fund. It is aimed at mature energy efficient technologies, and technology developers unfortunately cannot lead an application. But in terms of who can lead an application, that will be covered in Rachel's presentation when she talks through eligibility. Okay, so moving on now to the technological scope for IETF. And first of all, we're going to start with looking at energy efficiency, and this can cover studies and or deployment projects. Okay, so the aim of energy efficiency projects is to improve industrial process energy efficiency. There's some examples here of technologies that are in scope under energy efficiency. So energy use optimization and recovery. So for example, industrial process control, more efficient heat exchange, more efficient drying, energy recovery from waste heat, energy recovery from waste pressure, resource efficiency to reduce wastage and optimize use of raw materials. Heating and cooling equipment is also in scope under energy efficiency, but that's providing it is directly related to the industrial process and the equipment being used. So a couple of examples would be refrigeration for cold storage of products or cooling technologies for data centers. We've differentiated this because heating and cooling of buildings, for example, air conditioning or heating for staff comfort would not be in scope. Also, fuel switching is in scope for energy efficiency, but that's only permitted in instances where the switch is to a less carbon intensive fuel, and the fuel is also not a higher carbon intensity than the gas grid. So just to add a bit more clarity around fuel switching, so IETF can be used to support projects that switch from fossil fuels, more intensive than the gas grid, to the gas grid, and any fuel to grid supplied electricity. If you are considering a fuel switching project to biogas, biomass, or hydrogen, then this may be eligible for funding, but only through the decarbonisation study strand, which I will come on to decarbonisation shortly. Okay, so in terms of your application, you will need to show the energy savings that are determined by measuring or estimating energy consumption and production output before and after implementation. On the deployment side, as you go through your application, there is a calculator tool that will enable you to be able to calculate these energy savings. and that'll be touched on a little bit later too. And it must make sure that the energy savings are measured and take place at site level. In terms of the TRL level, so for energy efficiency, it should be 8 and above. And that is defined as where the technologies have been proven to work through successful operations or have been qualified through test and demonstration. So once again, it's not about early stage innovation. There are projects that we are not funding under this in this competition. So there's a list here. Combined heat and power upgrades. If you do have a CHP fuel switching project in mind, and that could be eligible under decarbonisation, which I will touch on later if that was with fuel switching. So we're not supporting electricity generation, the production of fuels, and that includes hydrogen, biogas or biofuel, repair and maintenance projects, plant closures, energy efficiency measures in transportation, building improvements or new build plant or expansions. With all of this though, the teams are ready to help you with any of your projects, and if you're not sure whether or not your ideas are in scope, then reach out to the teams and we can help you with that. So moving on then to the technological scope for decarbonisation. So this decarbonisation projects for this strand, it's only studies that can be carried out. And as Catherine mentioned, decarbonisation deployment projects will be supported in later phases of IETF. So decarbonisation studies. So really these must show a real step change in the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions of an industrial process. So the aim is to support studies necessary to facilitate the permanent installation of technologies at industrial sites. So it is not about R&D. So decarbonisation technologies, they must be TRL 7 and above, and that means the tech can be at prototype stage or requiring demonstration, as well as being proven to work, qualified through test. Okay, so just to go through the technologies then that are in scope for decarbonisation. So IETF will support fuel switching and on-site carbon capture. So under fuel switching, there's some examples here that are shown. So electrification of industrial processes, use of heat pumps, retrofits and upgrades of industrial equipment to use hydrogen or hydrogen blends, and retrofits and upgrades of industrial equipment to use gas, or in certain instances, biomass in place of other fossil fuels. So just focusing on the fuel switching. So applications will be supported where it can be demonstrated that the outcome of the switch delivers emissions reductions. So switching from fossil fuels to biomass, waste or hydrogen, from fossil fuels to biogas, and that will be where the site is off the gas grid. Fossil fuels, more carbon intensive than the gas grid, to the gas grid, and any fuel to electricity. So if you are considering a CHP project with fuel switching, then applications will be supported where the fuel switch follows the rules that I have just read out in the previous slide, where the output from the CHP project where biomass is used must be of high temperature applications. Biogas CHP projects are off gas grid sites, and at least 70% of both the heat output and the electricity output produced by the CHP plant is used for an eligible process by the lead applicant. If you are considering a biomass fuel switch project, then applications will be supported where they switch away from fossil fuels, where the source of the biomass is considered sustainable and so won't result in adverse environmental impacts. The output from the biomass combustion is used in high temperature applications. And it's worth noting that out of scope, biomass projects that are less than 1 megawatt thermal input are not supported. If you are considering on-site carbon capture, so as detailed here, the applications will be supported that do consider carbon capture technology where the captured carbon might be used on site or transported and stored. Your application must include realistic, economically planned CO2 routes, But it's worth noting as well what's out of scope are studies for CO2 transport networks, or long-term storage, or the development of test centres. And again, it's just worth highlighting under decarbonisation in terms of the projects and the studies that we are not funding. So again, electricity generation is not in scope. Production of fuels, including hydrogen, biogas or biofuel, is not in scope. Repair and maintenance projects, plant closure projects, decarbonisation measures in transportation, building improvements, such as building lighting, space heating, for example, and also new build, plant or expansions. So I hope that has given you an idea of what is in and out of scope. So there'll be opportunities later to ask questions, but there's also a service where we can talk through with you the details of your projects and help you identify whether or not your idea is in scope. So thank you very much, and over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Julia. That was great. So before we get to the Q&A session, we have one last presentation for you from Rachel Evans from Innovate UK, who's going to talk about more of the details on eligibility rules and how to apply. So over to you, Rachel.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Julia. So for just to start off on the eligibility criteria for the IETF competitions, so this competition does allow you to submit a previously unsuccessful application. So you can use a previously submitted application from the first round of the IETF phase 1 to apply for this competition. If you were unsuccessful in the previous window, then you should demonstrate that you have updated your application in response to the assessor's feedback we gave you. Also note that some of the application questions have changed, so you must make sure that you are eligible and that your proposal is in scope and the questions are answered in full before you submit your application. So on this slide, we show the types of organisations we fund. So we fund small and micro, medium or large companies registered in England, Wales or Northern Ireland. So if you are 100% owned by a large or parent company as a small subsidiary, this means you are classed as a large company and will only be entitled to the relevant grant. We also fund research organisations such as universities, non-profit distributing research and technology organisations, public sector research establishments and research council institutes. So please note for this competition, the lead applicant must be the manufacturer of data centre who will be the end beneficiary of the study or deployment project. So for the IETF deployment of energy efficiency technologies competition, the lead must be registered in England, Wales or Northern Ireland. They must carry out your project at a single manufacturing site or data centre in England, Wales or Northern Ireland, and you must exploit the results from England, Wales or Northern Ireland. So the minimum grant support available per project is £100,000 and the maximum grant funding that an individual project can claim is 14 million. So your project must start by the 1st of January 2023 and end by the 31st of December 2024. So moving on to the energy efficiency and decarbonisation studies competition. So the lead must be an England, Wales or Northern Ireland based business and the manufacturer of data centre operator at the site that it is focused and end beneficiary of the project. So the focus of the study must be an eligible site in England, Wales or Northern Ireland. So the project costs for this strand of the competition. So the total eligible project cost for an engineering study must be at least 50,000. The maximum grant that can be awarded for engineering study is 14 million. The total eligible project cost for a feasibility study must be at least 30,000, and the maximum grant that can be awarded for a feasibility study is 7 million. So your project must complete in 12 months if it is a feasibility study and within 24 months if it is an engineering study. So a bit about the participation rules for the IETF. So IETF encourages collaborations between industry and research organisation, but we do specify that the maximum share of costs that research organisations may claim within a project is 30%. So this is the total across all research organisations on the project. At least 70% of total eligible costs must be incurred by business. So the aim of this rule is to optimise the level of funding to businesses and recognise the importance of research-based project. So a little bit about collaboration. So all collaborative projects must include 2 organisations involved within the project, and this does include the lead. They must be business-led, where the lead applicant is the owner of the industrial process, and we would expect to see the structure and rationale of the collaboration described in the application. So a few key dates shown on the screen here for the competition. So the competition opened on the 8th of March. We've got the briefing event today, and then the submission for applications is the 14th of July 2021, and then we will aim to notify applicants on the 30th of November. So I'm going to talk a little bit through the Innovation Funding Service. So when looking for a competition, you need to search for the funding competition and review the criteria before you apply. So on the screens here, you'll see 3 screenshots of how to find the competition and how to then get to the Apply tab. So search for the competition in the keyword search on the left-hand side of the screen, and you'll be able to see both IETF competitions shown. You'll then need to open each individual competition that you would like to apply for, and read through the eligibility criteria, the scope, the how to apply, and any other additional information that we might need from you. Once you are happy that you're eligible for the competition, click the green Start a New Application button. So to apply for a competition, the lead applicant will need to create an account. If you've applied for previous competitions on IFS, you can simply sign in. If you have forgotten your password, please click the Need Help Signing In or Creating Account drop down. This will then bring up the Forgotten Your Password link. So you can use Companies House Lookup to search for your organisation to save typing in the name and the address. If you're not on Companies House, you can manually enter your information. So we do advise that research organisations and academics manually enter your information so that you're not listed as a business on IFS, and this will help ensure you receive the correct level of funding. So moving on to applications. So you can include multiple projects within your application, but you must make sure all elements located at the same eligible site and all individual elements are eligible. So if you are submitting multiple projects within an application, we will assess your application as a single submission. If you would want to apply to conduct projects across different sites, you will need to submit one application for each site, and you will not be able to aggregate studies and deployment projects together, but rather will need to submit separate applications to each relevant strand of the competition. So this slide here just shows the first stages of your application. So this will run through the application team, the application details, the public description, the eligibility and scope section. Full guidance can be found on our website, but we'll ask you for some key data. Specifically within the eligibility and scope, we'll ask for your company standard industrial classification, is SIP code, and industrial activity at the site of the application is different. We'll also ask for your full address of the project investment site and the full address of your headquarters if this is different from the company registered address. And then the final stage of the start of your application does cover some additional information. Again, full guidance can be found on our website, so please make sure you read through in full before applying. But for some key details, so we'll ask for the size of each organisation acting economically in the project team, and we'll refer to the funding section for further information. We'll also ask you to describe or explain, for example, is the installation or site where the project is taking place and the associated energy usage covered by the energy intensive industries compensation scheme. So please make sure you read through the additional information in full to make sure that you're giving all the information that we require. So section 2 of your application form will cover the application questions. So this slide here shows the IETF deployment of energy efficiency technology application questions. As you can see, there's 8 questions on the screen here. The first one is unscored, and then the next 7 will cover key areas of your application. And this slide shows the same thing, but for the energy efficiency and decarbonisation studies strand of the competition. There's 7 questions on this one. The first one again is unscored, and the next 6 cover the key areas of the application. So application finances. So labour costs. So you'll have to enter the role within the project, the gross annual salary, the number of staff, and the days to be spent on the project. IFS will calculate the total costs if you have multiple people in the same role on the same average salary. Enter this in the role within project field. So if an employee is part-time, you should enter their costs as full-time equivalent, and you can adjust the working days per year from the default if this is different for your project. So please note that dividends, bonuses and non-productive time are not eligible as labour costs, and when making grant claims against labour costs, actual costs claimed must be supported with timesheets. So we define overheads as additional costs and operational expenses incurred directly as a result of the project. So these could include additional costs for administrative staff, general IT, rent and utilities. So you have 3 options to calculate your overheads. These are no overheads, 20% of labour costs, or calculate overheads. So we class indirect overheads as those costs associated with back office functions, such as finance and HR, whose primary function is to support the running of a business. They can only claim a portion of their time, and their work needs to be additional to the delivery of the project. So moving on to subcontractors. So if the cost is going to be significant, you will need to justify who, why and what you need them for, both here and in your application. It's important that you justify the use of subcontractors within your application, especially those that are non-UK based, as the assessors do not see this level of financial detail. They only see the total cost. If you use a parent or sister company, please ensure you list the costs and do not include profit. So travel and subsistence. So here is where you would include things as any essential meetings that need to happen during the project. You cannot include any sales and marketing activity, as this is ineligible. Travel costs must be at economy travel only, and you should be prepared to provide a breakdown of these costs if the project finance reviewer asks for more detail. They might ask, for example, they might require you to split a trip into its subsistence, accommodation and travel components separately. So other costs. So please check the finance guide for what other costs can be included here. If you're unsure, please do not hesitate to contact customer support. Any other costs which don't fit the previous categories, for example, these may include training directly attributed to the project, licensing new technologies, and patent filing costs for new IP. Please ensure that there is no double counting and all costs are well justified. So capital usage, please note this does only apply to energy efficiency and decarbonisation strand. So capital usage is not an eligible cost under Article 38, the new subsidy rules. Here you'll need to describe how you're using the equipment, whether it is new or existing, the new purchase costs, how long you are depreciating it over, and the residual value at the end. These calculations need to be in line with your accounting practices. So material costs, this does only apply to the deployment strand of the competition. So here you'll need to enter and describe what materials you intend to use on the project, the volume and the cost. The materials listed must be project specific. Please provide as much information as possible. For example, just putting consumables at 50,000 doesn't provide enough detail, and you will be required to provide more information from our project finance team. So any items which you would usually depreciate as per your company's policy should be listed in capital usage. Materials supplied by associated company members must be listed at cost, excluding any profit element or margin. So funding rules, the level of funding awarded will depend on the type of organisation, your business location, and the type of research being undertaken in the project. Funding is calculated by project participant. So you'll need to define your activities within a project. So this includes the amount of grant funding you can claim, and it will depend on your organisation type. To determine this, you will be asked whether you undertake commercial or economic activities. For example, this just means, are you a business or aren't you? So this is just a slide to give you an example of the amount of funding that you would get within a consortium. So this just shows all the breakdown of the percentages that you can claim. Please feel free to look over this on our online guidance, as it will help you break down your application. If you are still unsure, please don't hesitate to contact our customer support team. So this slide here just gives you a bit of information about effective collaboration and wide dissemination. There is more information on our website, so I will allow you to read through that in your own time, but please feel free to reach out if you do have any questions. We are here to answer them. So this slide here just covers a little bit about subsidy control for the deployment of energy efficiency strand. So eligible costs for this strand. So for the energy efficiency deployment competition, the eligible costs against which applicants can apply for support are defined as the extra investment costs necessary to achieve the higher level of energy efficiency. So these costs shall be determined as follows. So where the costs are of investing in energy efficiency can be identified in the total investment cost as a separate investment, this energy efficiency related cost shall constitute the eligible costs. In all other cases, the costs of investing in energy efficiency are identified by reference to a similar, less energy efficient investment that would have been credibly carried out without the aid. So a similar slide here about the subsidy control, but for the deployment strand of the competition. So the maximum funding that you can claim is 14 million per project. You can receive funding on multiple projects as long as you are able to show that each project is a separate investment. And if grant funding has already been granted to an individual project, then the maximum aid that the project can receive is 14 million minus the amount they have already received. You cannot claim for duplicate funding on the same costs. So these grant rates just cover the deployment strand of the competition, and they show you what you can and can't apply for. So this is a bit of a consortium example. So this is a worked example based on 500,000 total cost project. It's project costs of 5 partners, 2 SMEs, 1 university, a catapult, and 1 large company doing a feasibility project, feasibility study. So please feel free to look back on this if need be. Again, please contact us if you do have any questions. So just to run you through academic partners within your consortiums. So academic partners in your consortium will need to complete the JES form, which they should be familiar with. The form validates costs for us. Innovate UK don't have access to the JES system to extract information ourselves, which is why you need to send this to us. So when they've completed their JES form, academics will need to include their unique reference number on IFS and input their figures. Please ensure the figures you provide are identical. Form must always be with council status and uploaded to IFS as a PDF. Submitting your application on IFS. So this is a summary of the project costs available to all organisations in the project. You will not be able to see any more details or breakdowns of anyone else's costs. For collaborative applications, IFS will highlight to the lead applicant any partners who have outstanding project finances to complete. All finances must be included in the application before the lead applicant can submit, and it will also check that your research participation costs are within the required limits. So IFS does not validate project costs. It is your responsibility to ensure all the costs are within the eligible total project costs as stated in the brief guidance. So this slide here just shows us some tracked usage of submission uploads. So as you can see, the majority of applications come in at the deadline time on day of competition close. So please make sure that you're not leaving it to the last minute to upload your application, so that if you are having any issues, our customer support team have time to help fix them. So please upload as early as possible, and just a reminder, competition close is at 11 AM on the dot. So a little bit about the assessment process. So the application is assessed. This involves a scope check, then reviewed by independent assessors. So assessors tell us that they want clarity, detail, justification, and to see that the applicant has presented a viable opportunity for growth with an exciting innovation where public funding will make a real difference to developing their idea. They have also said that they have the right people and the right approach to run the successful project and exploit the results. So answer the questions in the guidance so that the assessor can award you the maximum marks. Even if you have a fantastic idea, if you don't answer the questions, you won't score well. So make sure your application reads well. So you want to keep the assessors engaged and interested in your proposal and get them excited about your idea. They may be reading lots of different applications, so make sure yours stands out. So your answers to the application questions will be scored by the assessors. All applications are assessed against the same set of scoring criteria and assessed on individual merit. Applications will be competitively ranked by score. So please read the full guidance published on IFS, each competition for more information on the specific questions and how award decisions are made. A bit of a note on feedback. So the feedback is compiled using the written comments of the independent assessors who review and assess the applications. It is intended to be constructive in nature and to highlight both the strong as well as the weak areas of your application. Please bear in mind that because applications are assessed by a number of assessors, you may receive information which appears to be conflicting. This may reflect their different interpretations of the proposal you have submitted. It must also be noted that some proposals may appear to have been favourably assessed based on their comments. In such instances, it could be that your proposal simply fell below the funding threshold, with others achieving a higher merit score overall. And finally, it's just a bit about project setup for successful applicants. So after the assessment process, the award decisions are made by BEIS. Applicants will then be notified on whether they are successful or unsuccessful and receive their written feedback on IFS. BEIS will be responsible for the contracting and awarding of this competition. Applications that are successful at the initial assessment stage will then undergo the due diligence checks carried out by BEIS. A grant funding agreement will only be issued following the satisfactory completion of due diligence. IUK will pass on all information to BEIS to enable this process. So that brings us to our Q&A session. Before I hand back over to Jenny, as you can see on the screen here, there's some useful email addresses and details of opening hours of our customer support services. So any queries, please don't hesitate to contact us. Great, thanks, Jenny.
Thanks very much, Rachel. That was great. So we've had lots of questions come in whilst the presentations have been taking place this morning, and we have about 20 minutes, so we'll see how many we can get through. We'll kick off the first two questions, well, at least the first one is around policy, so I'm going to put that question to Catherine. So the questions come in. Catherine, why the big gap in the Midlands and South East in terms of clusters?
Thanks, Jenny. So the 6 clusters that make up more than half of UK emissions, as shown on the map, but we do know that there are other smaller clusters or groups of industry elsewhere in the country. The second question also got to do, is there support for companies that are off cluster? Does BEIS recognise them? That was about carbon capture. And the answer is a resounding yes. That's one of the reasons that the IETF exists as a fund. We're very happy to support companies that are not on the clusters as well as on them. So we're here for you.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's through the first two. Hopefully that's answered your questions, folks. Moving on to the next question from Nick Pearson. I'm going to put this one to Lily. So is there an intention to preference industries which contribute to a larger share of end user outputs or wastes, or is it bounded by the industrial process alone?
Thanks. So yeah, it would be the case that in all of the applications we're looking at site level energy savings and site level emission savings that can be achieved. So really the heart of that is what's being done to the industrial process itself. We're of course interested in like the wider benefits that there are across the supply chain that can be achieved through better process efficiency, waste optimization, so on. But that's something that we'll be considering through wider schemes within BEIS.
Absolutely, thank you, Lily. Next question is from I. Randall. So I'll put this one to Innovate UK. So David, if you'd like to take this one. Regarding the feasibility and engineering study strand, will the project decarbonisation potential be considered or assessed on an absolute or relative basis?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. I don't think my name's been mentioned yet. So David Hike from Innovate UK, for those who want to know who I am. So we will receive applications, and we've seen it in the last round, where people will write their savings on an absolute or a relative basis. So they might be saying, I'm going to save X tons of carbon, or I'm going to save X percentage of my carbon output or carbon impact. Either of those is fine, and the assessors will take those each on their own merit. And remember that this is about making deep decarbonisation. So we're looking for a significant impact on that carbon impact. So it's not relative, though, in terms of we're comparing one project against another application. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, David. Our next question has come in from Tanya Bailey, and this one is for Julia. What do you mean by monitoring at site level? What would not be suitable?
Yes, so by that I meant that when you're measuring your energy efficiencies and your carbon reductions, it has to be carried out at the site where that deployment technology would be implemented to be able to get an accurate measurement.
Lovely. And another one for you, Julia, from Lou. Can you give some examples of what types of project would be in scope? I think probably what types of technology.
For which strand, sorry?
She hasn't said, so let's assume deployment.
Examples of deployment technologies in scope. Gosh, yes. Well, there's lots. We ran through it on the slide. So there was energy use optimization and recovery. So that was looking at efficient heat exchange, drying, energy recovery from waste heat. There was heating and cooling equipment. There was fuel switching. There's a whole range of technologies. So I would encourage just to have a look at the guidance notes where it's detailed. And if there's any questions, then raise them.
That's great, and we will see some examples this afternoon in the case study presentations as well, so watch those, Lou. Next up is a question from Tom Lauerwa. Sorry, that's probably massacred your name there. So this is a question about the studies competition, and I think probably Rachel, if you could answer this one. How should the eligible costs for the studies competition be determined?
Okay, so
Yeah, I think that's a very good advice, because it will probably depend a little bit on what you want to do. Okay, so the next question I have is from Amir Rabani, and this is about the deployment competition. So Julia, again, if you don't mind, can a project start from a lower TRL, lower than 8 to 9 on a deployment project, and then finish at 8 to 9?
So I'd say that any activities they're taking out to get the technology up to the sort of the 8 level wouldn't be covered by IETF. But certainly once it's at TRL 8, then the IETF funding can kick in and then take it up to the next level. But no, we wouldn't be able to fund elements below TRL 8
Okay,
on
great.
the energy efficiency.
And the next one for you again as well, Julia, from Claudia Gomez Diaz. Oh, it keeps jumping about on my screen. She's asking, we talked about the project start date being the 1st of July 2022. So does that mean that's the last day that a project can start, or can they start after that date?
No, that's the last date the project can start. So projects can start way before then, after the grant offer letter is signed, but no later than that date.
Lovely. Okay, so my questions have disappeared. I think Dan is the next one, Dan Smith, and I'll put this question to Rob Arnold from BEIS. Can you explain why combined heat and power needs to be a high temperature application?
Yes, I just answered this in the text. Basically, it boils down to the fact that CHP is mainly a way of producing heat efficiently, and it tends to use carbon-bearing fuels, so it's got carbon emissions associated with it. At the lower grades of heat, there are other options for producing heat at a lower temperature. So we're trying to optimize CHP applications to those grades of heat where they are essential to provide it, and therefore constrain the carbon emissions to activities in which they're hard to avoid.
That's great, thanks, Rob. And the next question from Paul Clark as well, this might be a similar answer. He's asking, why do biomass fuel switching applications have to be 240 degrees centigrade or above as well?
That's a similar answer. You're absolutely right, and I've tried to answer that in the text. That is because biomass fuel is a relatively constrained resource in terms of availability, and it has a wide range of uses across whole energy economy. So again, it's an appropriate use case where we're trying to get that biomass used where there aren't any other ways of producing heat easily at the temperatures where you're seeking to achieve.
Okay, lovely. The next question is from James Mitchell, and I'll put this question to Julia. Is developing a smart metering network to record energy savings in scope as part of a proposal?
If that monitoring and measurement is directly improving the energy efficiency of the industrial process and it can be measured, then yes, it would be in scope.
Lovely. And if you don't mind taking the next one as well, this is on the deployment competition, and Amir Rabani asks, so when we're talking about eligible costs and counterfactuals, what does this mean?
Okay, so under the subsidy rules for this competition, it is only as I mentioned, the extra investment costs required for the higher level of energy efficiency that would be eligible. So that infers the fact there is an alternative, less energy efficient solution that you may be carrying out without the aid. So in that case, that alternative solution would be your counterfactual, your sort of baseline. And so therefore the eligible cost is the difference between that alternative, less energy efficient solution and the new the very energy efficient solution that you would implement with the aid. If you can demonstrate that you would not have been carrying out any energy efficiency improvements, or there isn't an alternative, then in some cases it is possible to claim against the full investment cost. But we'd strongly advise that you get in touch with us around this and talk to us in the detail of your project so we can advise you accurately on that.
That's great, thank you very much. And the next question is for David from Innovate UK. Mangesh asks, regarding resubmissions, are previous assessors' feedback shared with the new set of assessors that will be marking this round of funding?
No, they're not. So you will likely have a completely different set of assessors as well. They will not see any previous application or scoring that you got, and they will treat it completely on its own merits and score it in the round.
And David, if you don't mind taking the next question from Amir, again for both competitions, what would be the intervention rate for RTOs? So the percentage of grant they would get.
So that's 100% for RTOs that are acting non-economically.
Lovely, thanks very much. Again, another question from Amir for Julia. On the deployment competition, how is the intervention rate assessed? Is it just the lead partners, the size of the lead partner that determines how much grant the whole project gets, or is each partner given a different percentage based on the size?
Yeah, so each partner will have their intervention rate calculated dependent on their location, because under the subsidy rules, this competition is around where a company is located, as well as the company size, but it applies to each individual partner.
Lovely, thank you very much. And moving now on to Rocco Roldan Aguero, sorry for that pronunciation. I'll put this question to Rob Arnold from BEIS. If any further purification stage is needed for the CO2 to be transported and used after capture, is this in scope funded under the IETF? So the carbon capture bit obviously is, but is the cleanup of that captured CO2 eligible?
I think yes, it is. If it's part of the preparation of it for reuse or disposal, but it would need to be done on site. I mean, this is a site-based fund, and if it's essential to the providing, so enabling the offtake of the CO2 from your site, that's fine. But the cleanup would have to be done on site.
Okay, great. And a question now for Lily from BEIS. Dan Smith asks, have you factored in the length of time it is taking the Environment Agency to process permit applications in your implementation programs?
Yeah, thanks. So as set out in the guidance, if you're looking to do a deployment project for energy efficiency, then you'll have until December 31st, 2024 to complete that project. So that will give around 2 years to implement, construct, seek permits. Obviously, if there are any delays or issues during that time in seeking those approvals for the EA before you can start operating, that's something that you could come and talk to us about, and we could work through what the details are there.
That's great, thank you. Next up, we have Amir again. This question for Julia. Can a project consider multiple sites? So can you have multiple sites on a single application? And if so, which counts for the intervention rate?
So in terms of your projects, it would be one project per application, but a company can make multiple applications, providing they can demonstrate that they have the investment required to support each individual project. So it is one project per application.
Okay. Just moving down.
Jump in on that one.
Sorry? Of course you can, David. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify. When Julia said one project per application, it's one site per application. She's right. It's one project, but it's one project site, and there is a definition we have on project site being a single postcode.
Thanks for that, David. Yeah, you could have more than one project within a single site, couldn't you?
Yes, yes. depends how you define project, but yes, I think
yeah, you could have a heat recovery, a new boiler, and some process controls all within one application, as long as it's all based on the same site.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Next question is from George Reed, and he's asked, the total eligible project costs for a feasibility study must be at least £30,000, and for an engineering study must be at least £50,000. Is this the minimum grant size or the minimum total project cost? So I'll answer that because it's a nice and easy one. For the studies competition, those two minimums are the total project cost. So that's the grant plus match funding. Has to be at least 30,000 for feasibility and at least 50,000 for engineering. On the deployment competition, the minimum limit was just the grant on its own. Okay, so moving down, we've got 4 more minutes to go, so we'll see how many more we can get through. Simon Johnson has asked, is an energy use audit a permissible cost to assess the various industrial processes that we have at our site and then identify the most appropriate to focus on? So Julia, do you want to take that one?
Yes, so unfortunately, no, it is not designed to do like an options analysis. The purpose is that the technology will have been identified and then IETF can take it to the next stage.
Thank you. And David, another one for you. Colin Stakem has asked, in the competition guidance, can you clarify what effective collaboration and wide dissemination means? So in order to get those better intervention rates.
So I'd advise Colin to go to the competition page on the website where there is a detailed definition of what that means. But essentially, it means that there are at least 2 partners collaborating together. There are limits on the proportion of the project costs that each partner can take. So if it's 2 businesses, one can take no more than 70%, and if it's a business with an RTO, then the RTO must take at least 10%. They must intend to share knowledge and technology, or be working towards a collaborative objective.
Okay, thank you very much. A question from Martin Rose, which I can answer because it's the easy one. Is the last date for entry July? So yes, for this round of funding, the 2 competitions close on the 14th of July. So you have to have submitted your applications by 11 o'clock on the 14th of July to be in with a chance of being successful. And then I think, just looking through the last few ones. Romain Teblin has asked, is the acquisition of a technology, so actually buying the piece of kit to achieve energy efficiency goals, funded as part of a capital cost? So Julia, do you want to take that one?
Yes, purchasing equipment can be covered as a capital cost under the deployment strand. Yeah. But we would look at it as a whole in terms of the whole project. But yes, capital costs are covered in purchasing equipment.
Okay, lovely. And one for David again from Astana. In the feasibility study, we need to conduct empty runs on a furnace where there's no actual production happening. Can we cover the cost of the gas for running the furnaces to be claimed as a material cost under a study?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. I don't want to mislead on a recorded webinar because I don't know the answer to that immediately. But if no one else can answer, then we can check on that and then come back. Particularly if you want to submit a question to the IETF mailbox, we can answer it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Unless does BEIS want to say anything, or Julia?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. In some cases, because of the fact the studies are TRL 7 and above, which in terms of the definition means that it may require some demonstration, it is possible to submit some material costs, but predominantly it's going to be sort of overheads and labour, if you like, for it. But yes, do send a specific question in to the mailbox.
That's lovely. Well, thank you to all of our panelists for answering all those questions, and to all of you for asking all those questions. The ones that we haven't managed to get through today, we'll get in touch with you after the event to follow up with you, just so you do have your questions answered. We're now going to have a short comfort break. So as I said, we'll have a 15-minute break, but if you haven't registered for the networking platform already and you do want to have a one-to-one with either BEIS, Innovate UK or myself to talk about your project idea, because we weren't able to ask the questions about specific project ideas in the Q&A, then please do sign up right now and book a meeting with us, and we'll be able to answer those questions after today's event this afternoon. So other than that, enjoy your tea, coffee, and I'll see you back at 11:30. Thank you. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a chance to stretch your legs and get a cup of tea. As I said this morning, this afternoon, we're going to be sharing some ideas of technologies that you could implement on your site if you're a manufacturer or data center. And the first of those companies and technologies I'd like to introduce you to is Dave Betts from Energy Drive Systems. Dave is the managing director at Energy Drive Systems, and he's going to talk about their variable speed drive. Over to you, Dave.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to share. So I'm one of the founders of Energy Drive. And over the 10 years or so, we have just trying to get my mic to work. There we go. We've developed quite a diverse range of clients, mainly in the metals and mining industry, paper and plastics, etc. But really anyone that uses a fan or a pump in their process. We've been able to deliver over 530 gigawatt hours of saving, and that's 4.1 million pounds of net saving, direct saving to our clients. And that's based on 72 megawatts of motors. So using a variable speed drive on motors and fans definitely works. Now, environmental figures are pretty good, saving 493 million kilograms of CO2. It's the equivalent of disconnecting 20,000 homes off the grid and seeing the benefit of that. But why Energy Drive and why did we exist? Well, 60% of the consumption of electricity today is on motors, and most of those motors are used to run fans or pumps in industry. And a number of years ago, a device called a variable speed drive was invented that allows a motor to be able to be slowed down or speeded up in terms of what is demanded by the application. And although most people in industry want to have a variable speed drive fitted to all their pumps and fans, these were the 4 hurdles that often came up when we tried to sell the concept. And the first was the need for finance. Companies didn't have the money, or the measurement and verification of the system, or the VSD was seen as a potential increase of risk to production and so wasn't used. Or finally, they didn't have the technical resources to be able to do a project or develop it from production. So Energy Drive, we decided that we would try and overcome those 4 obstacles by providing the CapEx required, by using a third party to do the measurement and verification. And every system that we would install, we'd install with an automated bypass that if the variable speed drive would stop working for whatever reason, the client could engage a key switch and revert it back to how it used to run. And then we would work with engineering and electrical contractors that were referred or vetted by yourselves, and they would do the installation with our engineers. And then they would then monitor it and they would certainly maintain it thereafter for the type of the contract. And of course, one of the other reasons is some of these variable speed drives are quite large, the size of a bedroom perhaps. And where do you put one of those? In our switch room? And so we developed then these e-cabins that are environmentally controlled, that you could place them in there. So some maybe rough ground behind the factory or even a corner of a car park, we could actually place one of these containers in there would be the variable speed drives that could produce the energy saving on some of those motors. Now, one of the things we did develop, which we'll come on to the importance of, is online monitoring. Monitoring not only the kilowatts saved using a third party, but also monitoring the variable speed drive itself, its performance. It's the fan or the pump that we're running, making sure that they're all working in exactly the right way. And what we do then is we create a picture of what normal looks like. If any one of those factors starts to go out of parameters, we are notified as engineers, and then we would then let the site know of an impending problem, and then they could switch over to bypass, thereby not creating a problem into production. But let's talk about variable speed drives, because it's a great opportunity for saving power. How does a variable speed drive do that? Well, every fan and pump follows what we call a variable torque curve. It's that green curve you're seeing in the picture there. And every fan and pump runs at full speed. A typical motor would run at 1440 RPM. But these pumps and fans usually are spec'd to produce more flow or more pressure than is actually required by the application. And so then what tends to happen is we use mechanical devices called throttles or dampers or IGVs on the output of those fans and pumps to limit or control the flow rate. Now you can see the flow rate is that blue dotted line. And so what a variable speed drive would do is we would fit it, and then we would reduce the speed, as you can see, from 1440 to, let's say, 1152 to match the actual flow that is required by the process. But if you then follow the power that's actually being consumed, by using a speed drive, we were able then to drop the consumption of that motor by nearly 50% while still delivering the same flow rate that you're currently using. And this is true for most fans and most pump applications. Now, this is a typical application you may have in your factory, which is a cooling tower. Now, most cooling towers have more than one fan, 2, 4, 10, or even more. And the cooling tower is usually a large container with water flowing through and air being blown over the water to bring cooling. Now, obviously in winter, when it's really cold, you only need one fan. And so a lot of companies turn the other fans off. Then in summer, when it's really hot, you turn them both on. So in this particular cooling tower you're seeing, there is the potential of 200% flow, each fan delivering 100% flow. Now, what we would suggest is that by putting a variable speed drive on each of those fans and not turning them on or off depending on winter, we can create a significant energy saving. Let me show you how that works. So again, on this graph, there's the variable torque curve that fan would follow. And then you have fan 1 that produces 100% flow rate, and put the second fan on, and you have 200% flow rate. If we then reduce the speed of both those fans to a point where it matched the same flow rate that one fan would produce at full speed, note what happens to the power. Instead of that fan, in this case, consuming 1,000 kilowatts, that the combination of those two fans with a variable speed drive on would only consume just over 300 kilowatts. So putting variable speed drives on all of your fans maximizes the energy, but also remember the actual performance of the tower itself, the amount of air passing over the water is also kept exactly where it should be in its highest performance. So if you have a pump that's a duty standby, so you've got two pumps, one's duty, one's standby, and you rotate them, often by putting a variable speed drive on both those pumps or both those fans, and then controlling them as if they were one, can produce significant savings. And we can demonstrate that. Let's have a look at some applications, some real case studies. So recently we fitted a variable speed drive to a furnace combustion air fan. This was blowing air into a furnace. It was a 400 kilowatt motor, and they had dampers controlling it. And by using a variable speed drive instead of the dampers, we were able to develop 57% saving. Another application was a hydraulic power pack. There are hydraulic power packs right around the country right now that are running all the time, but the actual time when they're needed can be a few seconds in any given minute. And so by only turning the pumps on or scaling them up and bringing them down only when they're required, there's a significant saving. This can be done with a VSD. And there's, in this case, 71% savings. And then, of course, the cooling tower and water supply pumps, where we have just spoken about, in this case was 46%, but we could see upwards of 60-65% saving. This is a snapshot of one of those systems, that injection air fan. And you can see the red line there is the baseline, or that's the average consumption that fan was generating. And then during the production period, now the variable speed drive is only delivering what the furnace is requiring. And you can see the significant saving there between the red line and what is actual in blue. Then when they needed to cool the furnace down, the availability was there. We turned the fan right up to full capacity. And then as the furnace cooled down, so the speed of the motor was reduced. And you can see again, the energy saving. So again, we only produce what is required by the production.
Dave, that's 1 minute.
Okay, so let's quickly skip to how can Energy Drive assist you? So Energy Drive is an end-to-end partnership. We will identify the opportunities. We will then, with our engineering team, collect, analyze, and determine the savings. With you, we'll develop a proposal for our IETF submission, and then we will assist you in that IETF submission, liaising with you. And then at the end, if you're successful in receiving that grant money, we will then commercially contract with you to supply the balance of the funds to the IETF funds. And then if there's a shortfall to make that project work, we will then provide those funds and work with you. We will then develop the project. We will develop a functional design spec, project manage it, commission, monitor, and maintain it thereafter. So it really is an end-to-end opportunity. And variable speed drives, hopefully I've demonstrated, have a significant offering to bring to your applications without changing the motors or changing the parameters of your operation. We'd love to chat to you. So we're going to be available on the chat groups, or you can contact us on our website or by telephone number or email. Either of that would work for us, but we'd love to speak to you. Thank you for your time. And thank you for listening. Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks very much, Dave. And we'll move straight on to our next case study speaker. Darren Bryant is the CEO of HeatCatcher, and he's going to talk about some of the heat-related energy efficiency savings you could make. Over to you, Darren.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Jenny and KTN for the invitation to present on project ideas for waste heat recovery. As I mentioned, I'm Darren Bryant, I'm CEO of HeatCatcher. We founded it back in 2012 after a knowledge transfer partnership with the University of Brighton, focusing on modelling waste heat and how we can turn it into low carbon electricity from industrial processes. Since 2012, we've completed 26 feasibility studies across the sectors of lime, cement, glass, steel, aggregates, ceramics, waste incineration sectors. These studies have then led on to 7 detailed engineering designs, which then led on to the completion of 4 waste heat to energy projects. We're a team of heat recovery engineers specialising in the challenges and benefits of integrating waste heat recovery into manufacturing processes. And over the years, we've gained experience with helping support our clients with making applications, bids for grants, going back to the early days of the ERDF, European Regional Development Fund, to the like days of DEC when there was the Energy Entrepreneurs Fund. And more recently, we've been working across 7 sites with the Industrial Heat Recovery Support Scheme. Waste heat's a valuable resource if you know how much you have and what you can do with it. So when targeting waste heat sources, there are 3 main factors to know how you can convert it. These really are the temperature, how much flow you have, and the medium that you're working with. This slide shows from our experience the ranges of temperatures and flows across the sectors we've worked in. So running around the slide, from recovering cooling water from a heat treatment quench furnace, saturated steam rejected from a medical waste incinerator boiler, the exhaust gas from a ceramic tile kiln, the flue gas from glass moulding furnace, the exhaust gas from a container glass furnace, and significantly more exhaust gas available from a float gas furnace. The flue gas from the stack of a recycled asphalt plant dryer, and the largest exhaust gas volumes we found within cement plants. the exhaust gas from a dolomitic lime kiln, and cooling water from a steel reheat furnace. The main purpose of the next few slides is really to provide ideas of what technologies can be used to convert the waste heat to usable energy. If we take exhaust or flue gas from a combustion process, the dew point temperature at which condensation occurs, above this really is where we can recover the sensible heat with an exhaust gas heat exchanger. With high exhaust gas temperatures above 300 degrees C, we can use a thermal oil heat exchanger and send that energy to an organic Rankine cycle electricity generator, which typically efficiencies are high at these temperatures, over 25%. And dropping down, if we're talking between 100 to 200 degrees C, we're going to use pressurized hot water in a heat exchanger to again send that to a organic Rankine cycle generator, with efficiencies of lower at 12.5% and above. As the temperature available reduces, so does the efficiency of the plant, and really below, as a temperature, when we get down to sort of less than 70 or 90 degrees C, then really we can still generate electricity, although the efficiencies dropping further, but there's more heat available. Below the 130 degrees, really where you start to get condensation occur, this is what's called the dew point. But below this, the energy can be recovered. There's a lot of latent heat in there, but it tends to have to directed to a separate stack with its own exhaust gas heat exchanger that can deal with the moisture and the corrosion activity of a lower temperature where there's moisture occurring. This is an example of where we recovered the exhaust gas from a rotary lime kiln, and we recovered 4 megawatts of heat and turned that into 0.5 megawatt of electricity, which reduced the site's load by nearly 24%. And the picture shows the generators and organic Rankine cycle that was in the containers and the heat exchanger. We're targeting hot water, and it's available recovered either as condensate from a steam system or from an engine cooling system. The installation of a plate heat exchanger can recover useful hot water for space heating, for washdown, products for alternative fuel drying, or exporting to a district heating network if there's one in the planning or on local. Where there's a steam boiler and system with typically sort of 6 to 24 bar gauge, and that pressure is being reduced by a pressure control valve or a saturated or a pressure reduction station, by putting a steam screw expander in parallel to the steam flow, electricity can be generated. This slide shows a situation where we put in a 200 kilowatt generator in parallel to a 10 bar steam source within a medical waste incinerator, and producing 200 kilowatts of electricity. And this power was then used to offset what was required for the site from the grid. The most challenging and the most abundant waste heat source is below 50 degrees C. This can now be captured with the rapid development of heat pump technology and the need to switch to electrification from fossil fuel boilers. Using a low temperature waste heat source into a heat pump enables higher temperature hot water to be generated with lower electrical inputs than collecting the heat from the air source, or from ground source. And this is known as a higher coefficient of performance. The higher temperature water above 80 degrees C then can be used for wash water, space heating, preheating, or again export to a district heating network. For projects where chillers are due to be replaced because of the F-gas phase-out regulations, this presents an opportunity to rethink cooling and heating as not separate systems, but as conjoined, because new heat pump technology is commercially available that can supply cooling water down to -5 degrees C and same time produce hot water of 80 degrees C. Replacing the heat demand from the fossil fuel of the boilers could then come from a single chiller stroke hot water heat pump generator. These have low global warming potential refrigerants and will be a significant step towards decarbonisation of heat. Where you have manufacturing sites that are off-grid, and heating oil boilers are used for hot water. The slide shows an example of 140 kilowatt heating oil serving a concrete curing block. And by replacing these with high temperature heat pumps, you can obviously offset the need for fossil oil fuels with electrification. And it's an economical way of decarbonising. So in summary, really, the ideas for waste heat sources, by recovering exhaust gas and flue gas from the combustion process and converting to low carbon electricity can significantly reduce what you need demanding from the grid. Recovering hot water or saturated steam from the process can be converted to low carbon electricity again, or used to preheat combustion air to the burners, or input to a dryer where you've got alternative fuels that are using the raw materials to dry. The use of high temperature heat pumps to recover cooling water instead of sending it to the cooling tower or condenser can be a good input and can then produce hot water by elevating the temperature. Now, considering replacing chillers due to be phased out with a combination of a chiller and a heat pump and to give you the hot water that you need to offset your fossil fuel boilers to decarbonise. So how can heat catcher help? I mean, we go right through from initially quantifying what heat you need and you've got available and the best conversion technologies. And this is important for what you need inside your IETF grant application. And they'll be going on to actually delivering the feasibility studies, detail engineering, and the key thing is to get to the project delivery side and to get your savings. With simple paybacks of heat recovery projects ranging from 3 to 6 years, it's important the IETF fund is there to help improve on the return on investments to make them acceptable to corporate hurdle rates. So we can help right through the process. And yeah, if you have a waste heat source available that you think that we can help to identify what you've got, please get in touch. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much to Darren and to Dave as well, just for giving us a bit of an insight into the types of technology that are eligible for the IETF. And both Dave and Darren are on the networking platform. So if you have any questions for them about what you've just heard or projects that you would might want to talk to them about getting involved with and collaborating on, and then please do follow up with them on the networking platform. So thank you very much. Now, the next part of the event is a bit of an audience participation. So when you registered, we asked you if you would like the opportunity to do a 2-minute pitch to share your skills or technology or sites that you have available to the audience. So the next half an hour will be these 2-minute pitches. And you can see on the screen here, we have 10 pitches to go through. Each person is going to have 2 minutes to present their 2 slides to you. And again, we won't take questions after the pitches, but they are going to all be on the networking platform. So you'll be able to message them and organise a meeting to have a chat in more detail if what they're showing you today is of interest. So first up, we have Tom White from Siemens. So Tom, if you'd like to turn your mic on.
Hello, good morning everyone. I'm Tom White, Sales and Project Development Manager at Siemens, and pleased to be doing the first pitch of the day. I'm sure you all know Siemens, we're one of the world's largest engineering companies, and within our energy solutions business, we focus on projects that are impacted by the 3 megatrends in energy. Decarbonisation, so obviously very pertinent to the IETF discussions that we're having today, digitalisation and decentralisation. And as a company, Siemens recently passed our own 50% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. And globally, we've signed up to deliver net zero by 2030 and also signed up to a number of initiatives to support that. RE100, EP100, EV100 and science-based targets, so that our trajectory to net zero is in line with the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. So some of you may be thinking of doing the same thing or have already signed up to similar targets. If you can move to the next slide, please. So what we're looking for is industrial partners that want to go on the same journey as ourselves. We'd like to work with companies that have a vision to save carbon and energy, but we understand that costs are also very, very much an important driver for all businesses. So grant funding through IETF is obviously a very important part of that potentially. Also, we don't understand from an operations point of view that security of supply and resilience are vital components of any solutions as well. So regardless of where our clients currently are in terms of their journey, we provide a range of solutions and services that can support next steps, and we'd really love to work together on some grant funding projects. As an example, one of our recent initiatives in the food and beverage industry looked at generating heating and cooling for our clients' process, electrification of heat, and what we're looking at is submitting an application with our partner for a heat pump application for IETF. So our offerings range from project inception, decarbonisation roadmaps, through to full investment grade audits, and then implementation using a variety of business models, energy performance and contracts, and up to PPAs and things like that. So very much in line with the different elements that are eligible under IETF. So if you're interested, please do get in touch and we can talk to you a little bit more about how we could work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next up we have George Britton-Reid from North Shore IO.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
perfect. I think so. Brilliant. Thank you very much for having me today. George Britton-Reid from North Shore. I'm the Managing Director of UK and EMEA. And we're a small team of consulting engineers with staff at the moment in the UK, France, and both the east and the west coast of the US. Most of us are mechanical engineers, and our business was actually born out of supporting utility incentive and grant applications in the US. So over there's loads of programs, and they're specifically focused on kind of incentivizing the end users in that case on a grant or a rebate case per every kilowatt hour saved. So really excited that the UK now has a comparable program that we can take part in. Next slide, please. So our project idea, really, we want to help support a successful application and then collaborate on kind of the three phases afterwards, either the feasibility or engineering studies, or on the deployment itself, whether it be kind of like a retrofit to a mission critical piece of infrastructure, e.g. a data center. We also kind of do like new build design and all that kind of stuff that doesn't really fall under the scope of this. What's innovative about our kind of approach and our services? We focus not just on the energy side of things, but also on the build, and in this ever increasing digital age, on the analytics side of things too. So any decisions and anything that we recommend, we always back it up by data where applicable. So the services we offer, well, I mean, we are experienced consultants specifically focusing on utility incentive and grant applications. So whether that's your energy modeling, whether it's helping with a feasibility or an engineering design study, we're there to support. And we would love to see a data center take part in the IETF program. So looking for anybody who provides data centers or owns and operates one themselves. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much. Moving on now to Alexander Fedotov from C2 Technology. Alexandra, are you on mute? Hi, Alexandra.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Alex Fedotov, Managing Partner of C2 Technology, a British SME company with its office registered in London. We have over 80 years of combined experience of technology and product development in energy and process industries. Our current priority is to seek commercial applications for our core technology, eco-friendly sealless, high-speed gas-bearing suspended pressure-to-power steam expanded generator. Next slide, please. C2 offers steam users a highly innovative solution to mitigate rising electricity costs as well as to enhance their sustainability. Our modular energy conversion system, MAX, installed in parallel to existing pressure-reducing valve, generates up to 150 kilowatt of low-cost electricity by harnessing the energy available in the steam. MEX is built as a finite matrix of modules and interfaces reconfigurable to meet the client's needs with minimal additional design activities. Such a plug-and-play configuration alongside proprietary gas bearings provides significant advantages in functionality as well as reduced manufacturing and servicing costs. C2 analyzes client-side requirements and offers a solution based on 3 key needs of energy recovery market: return on investment starting over short time, low less than 300 kilowatt power range niche, and an ability to efficiently address a broad range of process media flow conditions. What is currently C2 looking for is a collaborating partner to demonstrate our MEX by retrofitting it into a partner's existing steam distribution network. Our ideal partner is a steam user in food and drink, pharmaceutical, or paper industries. They will receive a free steam let-down turbo expander, generating up to 150 kilowatt of free electricity to be used online. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alexander. And next up, we have David Knight from Electrotherm.
Thank you. I'm David Knight from Electrotherm. We're a renewable energy company that's focused on using practical solutions to achieve energy efficiency through heat to power generation. Our company was founded in 2005, and we became part of the greater BEIS group in 2016. The company developed the Power Plus generator, which uses ORC technology. It's a modular heat to power generator. It targets low temperature heat sources. Our commercial release was in 2011, and we've now got more than 100 machines operating worldwide. And each machine is fully supported by BEIS Greenpoint. Next slide, please. So we take waste heat to generate power so we can have more energy efficiency. We can also use the capacity of the ORC to do process water or condensate cooling, so we can save on your cooling costs plus make some extra electricity. And recently we've released an innovative engine cooling system for stationary engines, which uses the waste heat within the jacket water systems of the engine to generate power, which powers your radiator, and under normal conditions will give you more power. So what's innovative about our equipment? It's our high performance heat transfer technology and our twin screw expander. And we would like to talk to anybody that has a heat to power generation project, and we will assist you in preparing the package and in preparing your application for the fund. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're doing very well. Everybody's been perfectly on time, so thank you for that. Next up, we have Brian Sweeney from Calix Europe Limited.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Calix, my company, is a mineral processing innovation development company. We're based in Sydney, Australia. Our main products today are magnesium oxide and magnesium hydroxide, which are used in wastewater treatment, odor suppression, as a fertilizer in low magnesium areas, as a fungicide and an insect repellent in both agriculture and aquaculture. In terms of carbon reduction technologies, our main technologies are low emissions manufacture of lime and cement, reducing emissions from international shipping, advanced battery materials to store renewable electricity, and technology for direct air capture. I have a email and a telephone number there if anybody would like to make contact. Next slide, if you would. To describe the technology in the diagram on the right, the calciner is heated by external power, either electricity or fuel. We're fuel agnostic. The mineral is poured down the heated tube down the middle of the calciner. The process, the decarbonisation occurs, the cracking of the mineral. CO2 is taken from the top of the reactor as a pure stream, and the mineral, it comes from the bottom of the reactor. So the process emissions are captured directly. The heating is, as I said, is hydrogen, natural gas, RDF, electricity, and the heating emissions are separately captured. The status of our technology is that lime plant is ready to deliver. We would be delighted to do that. Cement demonstration plant is being built at the moment, and the energy demand of those plants is comparable with current technology. Do please get in touch if that's interesting. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Brian. And moving now on to Simon Pine from Greener Energy Futures.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and it's been a pleasure listening to all the interesting technology solutions that people have to offer and the case studies. So I'm Simon Pine from Greener Energy Futures. I founded my company a year ago really to tackle the climate crisis. Our mission is all to do with net zero and net zero planning. And as a result of that, we recognize there are some fantastic opportunities to get funding for your decarbonisation projects. We're a small consultancy based down in the Southwest, and we work with dedicated technical partners to help deliver our work. Next slide, please. So why get help on the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund? So we've been through a handful of iterations with my team colleagues on IHRS, the Industrial Heat Recovery Service, and similar. What we see is certainly some exciting projects in terms of carbon and energy saved. However, what we also see is organisations that struggle to deliver the application process in a timely fashion, much like was hinted at earlier when there's a lot of late applications. It is not a task to be taken lightly. It requires dedicated expertise, multiple competencies within the business. And what we do is we help engage that process and help take some of that burden off your plate. Don't underestimate the task. It's a lot of good money, but it needs a lot of good attention. The experience that we've got, we've successfully assessed and raised 3.5 million for decarbonisation projects in the last 12 months. So we know how to run through the application process. We know how to assess what technology is going to fit. We've got one customer who's saving around about 4% through heat recovery. And we're also working on another interesting one, which is deployment of a potential heat network to recover high-grade heat and repurpose it within a metal manufacturing plant. So what do? Well, we help you with the application process. We can assess it as a part of a wider net zero roadmap if you want to go the full net zero, to do the feasibility and so on. Please get in touch if you'd like help with the application process.
Thank you very much, Simon. That's great. And now we're moving on to Ben Harrington from Ecocentric Energy UK.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for having us today. So we're Ecocentric, we're the creators of Newman, which is a data-driven, non-intrusive, intelligent electrical device monitoring system. So this is very much an alternative to sensoring technology, temperature, vibration, etc. And our technology provides unprecedented insights into both the operation and the consumption of electrical assets for which we connect into. So our aim and objective is that we partner with a number of businesses whose clients require scaled and transparent data-driven insights about their built environment. So we're based here in the UK, in Berkshire, and we're also based in Perth, Australia. And you can see my contact details there. If we go to the next slide, please. So the project idea that we have is one that's tried and tested. It's a process called Newman Launchpad, which is essentially a phased engagement process where we design a strategy to apply to a particular industry need. So we use Newman technology to solve a particular problem. What's different about Newman, why we're innovative, is that we simultaneously and in real time analyze and compare thousands of different data points. So we're sampling at 8,000 times a second, and we can then use data analysis techniques and machine learning techniques to train algorithms that identify particular operating states or failures of electrical devices. So we can actually learn the phases of a pump or a motor, and also the failures of those and isolate those signatures, and then apply that to wherever we see that device again. So it's very much a scalable solution. So we want to work alongside partners to develop these bespoke solutions, wastewater treatment plants, HVAC and data centers, etc. So we're looking for companies that have clients that want to go through digital transformation, operational efficiencies, real-time asset insights, and reduce CO2. That's my own timer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very good. So next up we have Duncan Muller from Leeds Beckett University.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This project is energy efficiency based on intelligent and control system design. The project is led by Professor Xiaomei Deng of Leeds Beckett University, which is a research organisation. Professor Deng can be contacted at the university for further details. Next slide, please. The proposed project concerns an intelligent control system for energy efficiency of manufacturing systems, or potentially other energy-hungry systems. The project is innovative because it is low cost. The solution does not involve hardware changes or additional devices. It is therefore a cheap solution. The solution could be deployed quickly since the technique is mature. It is highly reliable and can improve the energy efficiency of manufacturing systems without affecting their productivity and quality. We can offer services for energy improvement. The intelligent control strategy allows managing the main and peripheral devices of manufacturing systems to reduce the global energy consumption. It is a solution for optimized, complex and/or flexible systems. Given the complexity of manufacturing systems as a function of the processes performed, the strong relationships between the peripheral and machining devices, the time-varying constraints such as tool wear, the efficiency of each device, and the changing working environment, optimization will be the key in reducing energy consumption. We seek partners who are any manufacturing company or any company with high energy consumption. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next up we have Yihua Hu from the University of York.
Hi, this is Yihua from University of York. I'm glad to be here to give my idea on energy saving. So my topic is about a lab box automatic control system for optimized energy saving. Could you please go to next slide? Yeah, so our idea is only work for the labs because around the world there are over 1 million lab, 10 million, instruments and 20 million people are involved. So a huge carbon dioxide emission from labs. So at here we proposed a hardware and software system. Our lab box can automatically control system, consists of main box and the relay box. The main box can do control and data collection, and the relay box is measurement and the on and off control. So at here we also have human machine interface system can relate to the artificial intelligence technology involved in. And here we offer the software system and hardware system. The hardware system is low cost based. So our service can offer is like measurement and verification and the development of energy system baseline energy modeling and baseline justification. And furthermore, we will propose integrating our lab box hardware and software system to help you to save energy. So what kind of partners we want to seek? We want to seek to help a larger laboratory companies and any company with larger clean rooms. We can help you to save energy with low cost and also in centric safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we have Mitchell von Oosten from Naked Energy.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks to the panelists earlier. It's great to see some familiar names around of colleagues that I've worked with over the last couple of years. Those who are involved in the IHRS program may recognize my voice from that phone line, and it's good to be presenting again to the IETF. My name is Mitchell Van Oosten. I've been with Naked Energy now as a senior technical sales engineer for just shy of a year. Naked Energy is a BEIS-backed UK micro company with an offering which is unique to the IETF and to the market as a whole. And next slide, please. Virtue Hot is a low-profile vacuum tube solar thermal energy collector which has been optimized for flat roofs and can address process heat temperatures of up to 120 degrees Celsius. Virtue Hot produces heat directly. It's not a solar PV product, which we know is out of scope of the IETF. We're now well into the commercial scale-up stage following the achievement of Solar Key Mark certification, and we expect our pipeline to continue to grow to a forecast deployment of at least 150 megawatt in the UK in the period 2021 to 24, provided, of course, that scalable support for solar heat continues to be made available. Thanks to the KTN, Innovate UK and IETF teams who are working to confirm that solar thermal continues to be approved for use within the IETF for projects at both the feasibility and deployment strands. We are especially interested in taking part in projects by providing heat to processes in the range of 100 degrees Celsius or as preheat to processes at higher temperatures. The technology integrates well with electric resistance heat, heat pumps and interseasonal storage, and Naked Energy can bring expertise on interconnection and control of those systems. We'd like to partner with project owners in industries including food and beverage, textiles, paper, printing, chemicals, and pharma and rubber manufacture, or any others with that 100 degrees Celsius range. Please reach out to me on Meeting Mojo or directly at that email address to further discuss any opportunities where we may be able to assist in decarbonization and energy cost savings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitchell. That was great. And thank you to all of our presenters this afternoon, the 2 case study speakers and our 10 pictures. I hope that's given you a nice overview of lots of different technologies that you could deploy at your site, or you can get involved in projects doing either on the power side or on the heat side to reduce your energy demand and carbon emissions. So the last part of today now is my presentation to be able to explain to you how the KTN can help you to actually apply into the IETF competitions. So I'll just move me on. So I'm going to talk about how you can find partners if you want to partner with somebody on your project. I'll talk about how you can identify relevant technologies. Obviously, we've just seen a great selection there, but there may be others that you might be interested in. I'll talk about how we can help you to find and understand the competition guidance that has been presented to you today, but there's obviously a lot more detail on the website. And then finally, how we can help you with the application itself. So first of all, looking at partners, and I've talked about it a lot today already, but the networking platform is the first place I would suggest that you go and have a look. In the previous round of funding, we had over 200 people on the networking platform, and you can direct message people on there and organise meetings to be able to discuss potential projects with them. That is definitely going to be the best place to find somebody to part with first. Once you've clicked on the link that you can see there and registered yourself on the networking platform, I would encourage you to go into your account and fully complete your profile, because that will not only help people to search for you on within the platform, but it obviously gives you a bit more depth to what it is you can do and who your company is for people that are reading your profile. So that is the first step. If you go into there and none of it looks like it can be suitable for what you want to do, then you come and have a chat to me and on my email. Not only myself, but the other teams at the KTN. We have a manufacturing team, an agriculture tech team, a materials team, and you name it, we've got a team that covers one of the manufacturing industries or data centres that are eligible for the competitions. So I'm sure that we can find a partner for you if you would like to partner with somebody for the competitions. Now, I spoke about this earlier on. This is brand new for this round of funding. We didn't do this in the first round, but we had feedback after the first round of funding that some of the manufacturers and data centres weren't really sure of what they could do. They weren't really sure of what technologies were at TRL 8 to 9 or on the market that they could actually deploy on their sites to help them reduce energy and carbon emissions. So we've developed this virtual technology marketplace, and this is just a kind of mock-up of what it will look like. Please ignore the fact it says SBRI competition rail. It's nothing to do with transport. This is just a similar site that we set up for a rail competition. As will obviously say IETF at the top, but you will have these little thumbnails for each of the videos, and the videos will be provided by the technology providers describing their technology and some of the sites where it's already been deployed. And that will hopefully help manufacturers and data centers to browse through different types of technology at their leisure and connect with those technology providers. Underneath each of the thumbnails, we will say a short description of what the technology is that the video talks about, again, helping the manufacturers and data centers to narrow down which videos they would like to watch. So in order to get involved in the virtual technology marketplace, from a technology provider's point of view, we need you to create a video. So a 5-minute video, absolutely max 5-minute video, should be in an MP4 or MOV format. That sounds terrifying to me because I am not, if it was my teenage niece, then she'd be able to do this in a second, but this is not something I'm good at. But you can make a 5-minute video just using your smartphone if you want to, and it will come out in an MP4 or MOV format. Or if you're not sure about that, you don't necessarily want to be on camera yourself, you could record using Zoom or Teams and talk over slides that you move through on a Zoom recording. And again, Zoom and Teams will create a file in an MP4 or MOV format. So you'd be fine to do either of those things without needing expensive video equipment or any kind of skill recording videos. We are fine for you to decide on how the video looks, how you're going to structure things and what order you're going to talk about things in. But I've provided a list there of the content that we would like all the videos to contain. So you can say it in any order, but it needs to contain all these things. So first of all, we need to know who you are. So describe your organisation, then describe the technology that you think would be suitable for the IETF, and the benefits it's going to deliver to the site where it's deployed. We also would like you to give an example or examples of where it's already been trialled or demonstrated before. So this is also a way of establishing what TRL level it is to make sure it's in scope for the IETF. So if it's an energy efficiency theme technology, then it needs to have already been demonstrated somewhere before. So it needs to be at TRL 8. So tell us where you've demonstrated it before. If it's decarbonisation, then that's TRL 7 to 9. So that could be a trial of a prototype. Tell us where you've done that trial so that we know it is at the right level. It would also be really useful for the manufacturers in particular if you could provide a list of the industries that you think this technology would be suitable for. So if it's going to work for the paper industry, say paper industry, and then paper manufacturers will know that they can get in touch with you. And lastly, we are going to group the videos on the platform under the theme of either energy efficiency or decarbonisation. So please could you select one of those themes when you're uploading your videos. So that's what needs to be in your video. In order to get involved, if you're a technology provider, you need to register and then you'll be sent a link to allow you to upload your video and a little bit of a description. And that is on the bottom of the screen there. And if you're a manufacturer or a data center and you want to get access to this marketplace once it goes live, you'll register at the top link there. So this isn't going to be a publicly open platform. It's only going to be accessible by manufacturers and data centers who are thinking about applying into the IETF and just want to get a better idea of what sort of solutions are out there that they could deploy at their sites, or they could prepare for a deployment through the study competition. So these links will be circulated to everybody that's online today to allow you to get ready for this. Technology providers, you have until the 31st of March to register and upload your video. So you've got a couple of weeks at least to do your video, 5-minute videos. The manufacturers and data centres, your registration will stay open. But the site will actually go live on April the 12th. So you'll get your login details and then be able to access the platform on April the 12th, and it will stay open until the end of the competition in July. So you have plenty of time to browse the different videos that are on there and get in touch with the technology providers directly. Then moving on to how to find all the information that you need. So here you can see we've provided the links to the competition guidance for the 2 competitions that are running, plus some supplementary guidance that is on the BEIS website. Again, all these links will be sent to you after today's event. If you have a question about either a competition or the programme in general, you can either contact Innovate UK through their dedicated IETF email, and they'll be able to help you answer any questions you might have, particularly around whether you're eligible to apply or whether your project idea is eligible. They'll be able to help you with that. And if you have any questions, you can also get in touch with myself on my email. As I said earlier this morning, this event is being recorded, so you will get a copy of a link to watch the video again and share with colleagues, and also a link to all the presentations that you've seen today too. And finally, help with the application process. So the KTN is being funded by Innovate UK and BEIS to support this programme. So we're offering a free proposal review. So once you've completed your application, you can pass that over to me, and I'll review it for you and give you some hints and tips and comments on how to strengthen your questions to give you the best possible chance of being successful. Obviously, I can't say how the assessors are going to score it, whether they're going to think the project idea itself is worthy of high score, but we can make sure that you've answered all the questions fully to give you the best chance of success. So again, get in touch with me for that. I have colleagues at the KTN who are helping me with those reviews as well. So the only thing I would say is don't leave it until the day before the deadline. Try and get your applications to me about a week before. It takes me about 2 hours to do a review. So I'll book you in as I receive applications. It'll be a kind of first come, first served basis. The other thing that worked very well on the last round of funding, which we're going to do again in this round of funding, is to hold competition clinics or drop-in clinics. So these are half-hour webinars. They are open forum, so a bit like the Q&A we've had today. You can register to attend one of the clinics and put your question to BEIS or Innovate UK, and they will answer those questions on the webinar. But I'm just emphasising it is open forum. It won't be a one-to-one thing. It will be in a group of people who are all asking questions. But it was really useful in the last round. So they are every fortnight, starting from the 23rd of March. So 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks time, they will start and run till the end of June. So if you want to register for the clinics, again, the link's there. That's the same link for every clinic that happens until the end of June. So you're welcome to sign up there and come along to those webinars. And I think that's it. Yes, it is. So I've said any questions. If you do want to put any questions to me, then please come and book a meeting with me, a one-to-one meeting with me on Meeting Mojo rather than doing it now. Because we'll wrap up now. So I'm going to hand over now to Catherine Barber for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Jenny, and thanks to all of our presenters and pitchers for those excellent presentations and really informative talks. Well, it's just my chance to express our appreciation to KTN for organising this fabulous event, to Innovate UK for running this spring window for us. My thanks to my colleagues at BEIS who did so much preparation for today. And to you, please do put your applications in before the 14th of July, preferably a few days or even weeks before that to avoid higher blood pressure on anybody's side. You can take advantage of the eligibility checking service that IUK offer, and also the application advice service that Jenny has just described. what we saw from the first phase, phase one window last year, was that companies that did participate in those services, those events, the competition clinics, etc., had a better chance of success, unsurprisingly, because they were getting the best advice. But you've put yourself ahead of the game by coming to today's seminar. I hope it's been useful, and we look forward to seeing many of you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.